This is the story of two happy families
That face.
that act as one.
They were around each other constantly.
Louisiana tailgate park.
Yep.
They felt like she was their daughter.
But an unimaginable betrayal
This was the last straw.
911, where's your emergency?
will tear them apart.
It was one of the most horrific scenes I'd ever been on. It's burned in my memory thinking about it.
We would like to welcome you tonight to our Sweet 16 presentations.
It's 1996 in Mandeville, Louisiana, and the local athletic club has been turned into a ballroom for the party of the year.
Present to you our Sweet 16.
20 young women from Mandeville High School are celebrating their Sweet 16 in style.
And now we present Julie and Jell Herrinjay.
One of the birthday girls is high school sophomore Julie Marinjay.
There she is. That's my Juju right there. And that's a happy night for her and for all of us. She looks beautiful.
It's a magical night for Mom Cindy, who helped to plan the event.
We invited a lot of people, so we had our own table and everything. Everybody had such a great time.
With Julie is a special man in her life, Bobby.
She is escorted by her father, Robert Marinjay.
I was very proud to take Julie on the stage the night of her Sweet 16. She's beautiful as always. The thing I remember the most is how happy she was and how much she enjoyed it.
My dad has way more hair in this video than now, for sure. But the smile on her face, you can just see how proud she is to be walking with my dad.
For older sister Jill, the event is more than just a party.
It was something that started after me turning 16, so I had never experienced it. So it was so fun to watch and to see the girls just really enjoy it. It's like a rite of passage to kind of going into womanhood and moving into your future as an adult.
And with her poise and beauty, Julie seems well on her way. Even while still in high school, Julie has started to land gigs as a model.
Honestly, I just don't think she knew how beautiful she was. She truly was just a natural. She was a tall, statuesque, thin, blonde, just a stunning human being. And then on top of it, she's nice.
It's time for the daddy-daughter dance, giving fathers and their daughters a chance to connect. But that's never been a problem for Julie and Bobby. In fact, Julie has always been close with her whole family.
And we have a very close-knit family. We're all super, super close. She is 4 years younger than I, so we've kind of always been best friends, growing up. There wasn't a day that didn't go by that we didn't speak. We share everything. There's not much that we don't all know about each other.
And now, fathers, it's time for you to turn your daughters over to their younger escorts for the evening. We invite the boyfriends to join our Sweet 16 ladies on the dance floor for the next dance.
Though she has an official date with her this evening, Julie is more excited to dance with her best friend, Kristen Dargis.
Kristen and Julie have literally been friends since they were in grade school. They are pretty much as close as you can get to sisters. Anytime anything social was going on, you always knew that Julie and Kristen would be there together.
We are the Tip Tops from Mobile, Alabama. Mandeville High, Sweet 16, it's all good.
Once the band gets going, Julie and Kristen get lost in the crowd. Most classmates quickly pair up with their partners. But Julie's dream date isn't here tonight.
Julie was crazy about Kristen's brother, George. Even when she was 10 years old, she just thought he was wonderful.
Being that Julie was at Kristen's family so much, they were around each other constantly. They never really dated or anything at that young age, but there was kind of this chemistry that they shared.
Despite Julie's interest, the two drift apart.
The reason they didn't end up together as teenagers is because he started going out with this girl, so that kind of ended it for Julie. She and Kristen were still friends, though, best friends, and she would hear about him through Kristen.
By 2008, it's been 12 years since that Sweet 16 ball. But Julie and Kristen, now both 28 years old, are still just as close. Here, they're on a double date, playing board games. Kristen's boyfriend, Carrie, is on the couch. Behind the camera is Julie's boyfriend, David Olson.
Julie was so funny and spontaneous. You never knew what was gonna come out of her mouth next, and I was kind of the same way. And so, you know, you put that together, and it's like I had to get some type of documentation, some type of video. Hey. Oh, you got video here? Oh yeah.
The two met back in 2001 after being set up on a blind date.
My stepsister had kind of played matchmaker and set the two of us up. And I went to her work at the mall and kind of, you know, recon the situation before we went on the date. I mean, she's really has got the most beautiful blue eyes, and that was it. I was hooked.
Is it syllables or words? Julie and David were just fun together. They were the couple that you wanted to be around because you were always laughing. Forward driving.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do the wheel.
Before the couple met, David was a Navy ensign stationed in Mississippi and was married.
When I was in the Navy, I married a girl. We were driving from North Chicago to Biloxi, and we were in an accident where we somehow had crossed the median into oncoming traffic and hit a Mack truck coming in the opposite direction. And my wife was killed immediately.
Though David survived the accident, he wasn't unscathed.
When the wreck happened, I was actually sleeping in the back seat. I think I had something like 50 facial fractures. My jaw that was completely smashed. And so I have, you know, lots of plates and screws holding this beautiful masterpiece together.
David's severe injuries mean he has to carefully manage his pain with medication. Julie takes David's trauma in her stride.
What some people might see as a deterrent, Julie just completely accepted the fact, you know, that I was 21, 22 years old and a widower.
David and Julie start a brand new chapter as a couple. They move in together, knowing they have their whole lives ahead of them. Back in Mandeville High School, Julie Maringer dreamed of a career in fashion. But once grown up, she finds a far more rewarding career path.
Not long after Julie left the makeup industry, she actually went to work for a hospice.
Julie was a loving kid, and she took these people's problems into her heart. I didn't think she could do it, but she proved us wrong.
She was such a giving person. It was just a job that she was made for.
In her spare time, Julie unwinds by hanging out with her best friend, Kristen Dargis.
Did somebody bowl your pink ball, Kristen? Yep. Son of a...
David is once again behind the camera as he and Julie enjoy a double date with Kristen and her boyfriend, Carrie.
What? Did you see what your girl just did? Did you see what she just did?
Things are going well for Julie and David, apart from one thing.
Hey, babe, you gonna give us a strike or what?
Julie and David really wanted children. They did a lot of things to try, and it just wasn't happening for them.
She was trying to go to the clinic. She was even talking about maybe doing something in vitro, you know, so.
Almost, baby. Almost.
Despite the setbacks, the couple continue to try.
Julie, being who she was, she could always find the positive. She said, you know, there's a reason. It's not my time. I think they just understood that that was God's will for them. And, you know, everything happens as it should.
Stop. There's Louisiana tailgate ball.
It's February of 2008, Super Bowl Sunday, and the Dargises are hosting a grillin' and drinkin' party. That's Kristen's mom, Nikki Dargis, cooking up a storm.
What are you making, Nikki? Onion rings.
And Kristen's dad, George Sr.
Boar's head ham.
Traitor.
Virginia
Traitor.
ham. You ever tried?
You a traitor. My mom screwed up with Kentucky ham really bad.
Ham?
Yeah. Because they're like, they... I thought Kentucky was whiskey.
Julie had a great relationship with the Dargis family.
That face.
And she loved them so much, and they loved her. They felt like she was their daughter.
Kristen's older brother, George Jr., the guy Julie had a crush on back in high school, isn't here. His life took a much darker path than Julie's.
George was always a little bit, you know, on the mischievous side, kind of pushing the limits. George, at a young age, had gotten into some trouble.
George, now a father, went to prison in 2004 on narcotics charges. He's been there ever since.
Doodle! Doodle!
As per usual, David's keen to capture everyone on video.
See, y'all all saying, oh Lord, now, but when we're 60 and 70 and 80 years old, y'all gonna be like, oh, I can't believe I'm so close.
But later in the evening, it's David's turn to be in front of the camera.
Got it going.
Behind the laughs, David is still struggling with the aftermath of the accident that killed his first wife.
Well, I had moments where I would have serious bouts of depression, and those days were filled with liquor and pills. That's how I took care of the pain.
One day, like Kristen's brother, David finds himself on the wrong side of the law.
When I got my DUI, in your mind, you just feel like everyone's gonna just dump you, and they don't want to have anything to do with you.
You get away from my food with that.
It was shocking because it was out of his character. Julie felt like, how did I not realize this was going on in our home? And she felt some guilt that he was suffering through this addiction.
But instead of stepping away, Julie steps up.
Julie was there for me 110%. You know, of course, I mean, she didn't condone my behavior.
David.
She wasn't gonna leave me high and dry. She decided to help. So Julie started doing all of the research into rehab programs in the area, and she was very involved in making sure I got a handle on my problem.
With Julie's support, David manages to get clean and back to his usual self.
Julie would just drop everything to take care of whatever you needed done. I wish I could have a heart that big sometimes. You know?
The beginning.
Later on, while I'm holding your hair back, I'll be editing this. It'll start with that, and it'll end with.
The final whistle goes.
Oh, it's over. Giants win it.
Everyone takes a timeout.
Is he eating oysters?
The Dargises really are Julie's second family. But that's about to change. In 2012, 4 years after that Super Bowl party at the Dargises, Julie and David are still having just as much fun with the camera.
They so delicious.
I can't see your hair in it. Yeah, boy. They're magically delicious. Say it.
Oh, where's me Lucky Charms? They so delicious.
They're magically delicious.
They're magically delicious.
But they still haven't been able to conceive. So
Here we go to our back. Look like a freak. Because we said dirty.
for their anniversary, David gets Julie this white Persian, Boudin.
Booty, you're gonna love this. It's nice and warm. Come on, you taking a nice bubble bath.
It's a sweet moment for the couple. But Julie is getting restless about their life together. A cat isn't a ring.
From the start of the relationship, I told Julie that I really wasn't interested in getting married, and that was important to her. We were getting older, you know, we were in our late 30s.
Were you happy?
Things got complicated, you know.
After over 10 years together, Julie and David part ways in early 2013.
Sorry. I could not believe it. I was devastated because I love David and I thought that they could make a go of it.
Kristen Dargis helps Julie adjust back to the single life. That summer of 2013, she brings Julie along to her parents' annual 4th of July party. Julie spots a familiar face. Kristen's brother, George Dargis Jr. He finished his jail time a few months ago. The two catch up long into the evening.
You're gonna be busy.
Prison has changed George.
He really had turned his life around. He was raising his kids, he was working, he was running his dad's company, he was doing very well.
It's clear that the flirty spark between the two never really extinguished. After years of crushing on him as a teenager, Julie and George finally start dating.
I was very surprised when Julie told me that, considering his background. I said, Julie, the boy's been in prison. And she told me that George had changed, that she really believed in him.
You don't want to judge anyone on their past, but you're protective of your sister. And knowing what a giving person she is, you don't want someone to take advantage of her.
Seeing how happy Julie is, they give him a chance.
I mean, I had known him since Julie was 10 years old. He seemed very sorry for everything that he had done. Everybody deserves a second chance.
Dating her high school crush isn't the only dream come true for Julie. She also has a chance to be a mom.
When George came into her life and she was blessed with stepkids, it was kind of one of those moments where, oh, well, here's the children she wanted, all these years that she couldn't have. It's just like God placed them there with her.
Julie took care of these kids as if they were her own. She'd do anything in the world for them.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Just 6 months after that 4th of July party, in January of 2014, George proposes. That October, the pair exchange vows.
It was wonderful getting her ready and seeing the joy and love that Julie had for him. And I was real happy for Julie.
The Dargises, who always felt like family to her, are now Julie's actual family.
His parents were elated. She was just kind of like another family member already, even before her and George started dating.
By Christmas 2014, George is a part of Julie's family too.
He said you better come on and get some hands.
He fit in really well. George and Julie would have barbecues, invite us over, and they just seemed so in love.
Julie finally has the family unit she's always dreamed of. It's Christmas 2016.
Look at him, he's after it.
And Julie is watching over her niece and nephew as they open their gifts.
And like the roll right there. Hang on. What'd you get, Gabby?
But Aunt Julie doesn't seem her usual cheerful self. Cracks have already started to appear in her new marriage.
George was getting more irritable each and every day. It seemed to be getting worse.
It's not long before Julie finds out why. George has slipped back into using codeine and other narcotics.
When I found out that George was using drugs, I was sad for Julie. I really was. Just because she's such a great person, and I felt like, here we are again. Sometimes I feel like she's taking care of everyone else but herself.
As always, Julie isn't ready to give up on someone who needs help.
I can get you a place.
Julie was trying to help George to get off drugs. And to try to make a family, you know, with the children. And she wanted them to make it together.
Julie and the Dargis family worked together to help George, but after 2 years, he still isn't getting better.
Julie had put him through rehab, and he would come out and relapse, and then she put him through again, and he would come out and relapse.
Hey.
No need to ask how your day's been.
Julie told George, why don't you try to do better for your kids if you don't want to do it for me and you?
She told him he needed to move out, and so he moved back in with his parents, but the kids stayed with Julie.
Julie hopes it'll be the wake-up call George needs to save their family. On the Tuesday after Thanksgiving 2017, a high-speed police chase in Slidell, Louisiana has ended in a crash. The driver has fled the scene. Deputies inspect the car and find liquid codeine inside. And they quickly catch up with the driver of the vehicle, George Dargis.
Julie knew this was the last straw. George didn't want to help himself. And I think Julie finally realized that she could not change George.
When George calls Julie from jail to ask her to post bail, Julie stands her ground.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I don't have any money.
Well, you can get something. You can call us something. You can just do some money on my mind. Martha, I don't...
Hard as that.
I get it. That's what answer is. But I mean, first I shouldn't have to call anybody. You call the wife.
I'm done.
Wait, what?
I'm done.
Why?
Why, George? You ruined my life.
She wanted.
Saturday, December 2nd, 5:30 a.m. Police receive a call about a burglary at Eddie's Grocery on US 190. 15 minutes later, another call about a burglary on US 190 at a Dollar General. Just minutes later, yet another burglary on US 190. In each case, someone smashed their vehicle through the building's front glass and then robbed the place.
It is very unusual for a series of burglaries to happen like that in such a short time in a confined area.
Then, at 7:30 a.m.,
911 3320, where's your emergency?
It's my son had come to my house and said he hurt his wife.
All right, and he called you and told you?
Yes, he came by. I told him to leave. He said he hurt his wife.
the caller is Nikki Dargis, and she's talking about George. St. Tammany's sheriff's deputies race to George and Julie's home.
As the deputies entered the residence and moved down the hallway, they discovered a female lying face down in the kitchen.
The female is identified as Julie Dargis.
I pick up the phone, and it's Jill. She was crying, and I said, Jill, what's wrong? And she said, George beat up Julie. And I said, where is she? Where is she? What hospital? Is she in the hospital? What hospital? And Jill said, no, Mom, she's dead. And I started screaming. I said, no, she can't be dead.
Detective Lunsford arrives on the scene.
She's in the kitchen.
As I made entry into the house, it was a horrific scene. There was evidence of a struggle throughout the house. There was items knocked over. There was blood evidence throughout the residence.
From her wounds, it looks like Julie suffered a ferocious, prolonged attack.
Julie had blunt force trauma to her head, multiple stab wounds. Her throat was cut. Her nose was broken. She had defensive wounds on her hands when she attempted to fight back. And she did everything she could to try to defend herself. It was very obvious. It was one of the most horrific scenes I'd ever been on. It's burned in my memory thinking about it. But I had to suppress that and get the job done that needed to be done. I was working for Julie at that time. I needed to do what I could to make it right for her.
A quick check reveals George had been bonded out of jail by his parents just 2 days earlier because they were worried he was suicidal. And there's no sign of his 2 kids. Investigators need to find him immediately.
We didn't know what was going to happen next, where he was going, what his plans were.
They quickly realize he's not in his usual vehicle.
George's truck was left at the residence, parked on the side street next to the house. And Julie's car was missing.
With no time to lose, detectives put a bolo on Julie's black Chevy Impala. It could lead them to George, and more importantly, to his kids.
Finding the children was a priority at that time. We assigned several deputies to solely concentrate on that. We didn't know what to expect, that they could be victims somewhere else. They could be victims of kidnapping.
Reports start to come in.
Okay, I'm on my way.
We quickly identified that the vehicle that was identified in the earlier burglaries matched the description of the vehicle missing from Julie's house.
George Dargis is behind the robberies. But he's long gone. There's no sign of him or the car. Then they get the news they had all been hoping for.
When we found the children at friends' houses,
They're safe.
we were greatly relieved that they were well and that they weren't part of this crime.
They're reeling from the shock of what their dad has done.
The daughter already knew, and she just ran down the driveway and just buried her head in my chest, crying. I said, "You're not like your dad. Miss Julie loved you so much, and we're gonna get through this, and we're still family."
The children were safe and fine. But George was still missing. There's nothing more dangerous to others or to themselves than a person who has nothing to lose. And at that point, George had nothing to lose.
George's parents are in disbelief over what their son has done. Detectives ask George's mother, Nikki, to tell them everything she can about George's last movements.
And last night, about 3:30, I saw him coming down the steps, and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm just going downstairs." And the next thing I heard, the car taking off. And then I laid on the sofa waiting for him to come back, so I was sleeping there. And so I got him about, it was almost 7:30, I think, because I put the coffee on. And he comes walking in, and he had a rag with blood all over it. My husband had gotten up. He says, "What did you do?" He says, "I killed Julie." And then my husband said, "Get out of this house, get out." And so no sooner we saw him pull off than I called Julie on her cell phone, and she didn't answer. And that's when I called 911.
Okay, so you called 911.
St. Tammany detectives get a call from New Orleans PD 30 miles away.
We gained information that George Dargis had been involved in a car crash on the I-10 twin span to New Orleans.
He's in custody, and Detective Lunsford wants answers.
My goal in the interview when speaking with George was to find out what happened. It was so crazy, the scene. What would cause someone to do that to your wife? I didn't understand it, and I needed to, and I needed to find answers for the family.
So you told your parents you did something really bad. You remember what happened when y'all say something really bad?
Probably not.
Well, let's say you did. Y'all were in the kitchen?
I didn't even go inside. I stood in the front door.
No, you went inside. I know you did. I get it. I got that. And I'm not, it's fine.
I tried to minimize his actions and tried to give him a platform where he could be the victim in it and tell us his side of the story on what happened.
Did she grab the knife first?
She typically grabbed the butter knife. I grabbed the big knife.
Okay. And did you push it into her stomach?
No, we kind of like fell into each other like that.
Okay. You don't remember how her neck got the little cut there?
Listen, I don't want to talk about it.
I know you don't, but we have to.
That's my wife. I don't want to talk about it.
I know, sir, but it's really important, and I just need to know.
Why?
Are you
I'm
sorry?
going to jail for life.
Are you sorry?
Yeah.
You sorry you killed your wife?
Me too.
It's okay.
George's tears don't convince investigators.
Things keep going the wrong way.
There was no way that the death of Julie could have been an accident. He butchered Julie. For George to say that he was remorseful at the end was immaterial. George had done one of the worst things I have ever seen during my career.
Based on the evidence, investigators piece together what they believe happened that night.
My belief is that George went to the house to speak with her about their marital issues. My impression is that Julie was not going to go back with George, that she was going to file for a divorce, and that George couldn't handle it. George couldn't not be in control, and that it just drove him over the edge to do what he did. After George brutally murdered Julie, he stole her car and went on a rampage to get money for his flight from law.
In April 2019, George pleads guilty to second-degree murder and several other burglary-related charges. He is sentenced to life in prison.
And now we present Julie Angel Marinjay.
Losing Julie has changed the Marinjays forever.
It's a daily struggle. You never think that can happen to you or your family. You know, someone like my sister who was so good and so kind and did so much for this person and for everyone she met.
If I had another chance, and I had that feeling, I would just take over and not let her do it her way. It'd be done my way. If I would have dealt with him, she would still be here. Just broke my heart.
There's nothing worse than losing a child. And people may say, oh, they understand. No, they don't.
Certainly. Here is a narrative retelling of the case, written in the style of Joe Kenda, keeping the tone direct, cold, and philosophical while adhering to your formatting requirements. Human beings are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you could possibly imagine. Barbara Burns spent most of her life caring for her younger sister, Debbie. Debbie suffered from significant brain damage and neurological impairment. Barbara was not only the caretaker for her sister, she also became the sole breadwinner of the family. Then, a surprising inheritance changed everything. She thought, "Oh, we are rich. We have all the money in the world." They lived a fantasy-type life. All of a sudden, they were traveling to California and then to Australia, taking a tour all around. But dreams die hard when the money runs out. A terrifying discovery revealed a dark secret. It had definitely been months that body had been rotting under that shroud of sheets. There were all kinds of air fresheners. There were bowls and potpourri. Just anything you could think of to try to mask the smell of a decomposing body. What happens when a kind heart turns hateful? Sometimes circumstances create a devil. And a confession so haunting, even the accused could not believe it. They told me that I killed my sister, and I do not know what happened. Until this day, I still cannot remember. St. Petersburg is a beautiful city. It is on the water. Many types of people from different areas live here. They come from all over the country to live in our beautiful city. It is kind of a sleepy little town for retirees. In the last 10 to 15 years, downtown has exploded with a bunch of new buildings. It has become a lot more residential. At 10:30 in the morning, independent contractor Jason McCain and his son were sent to a residence on Yellow Pine Drive in a mobile home community on the north side of town. The residence had been purchased and fell into foreclosure. The finance company had hired a cleaning company to go in and clean it all out. When they got there, the neighbor who lived to the right-hand side, to the south side, said no one had been in that home in like 8 or 9 months. Upon entering, the cleaning crew was met with a foul odor. They assumed that the bad odor was rotting food from the refrigerator. There was a Christmas tree half undecorated in the hall, and there were calendars and pieces of life left strewn about. It did not look like anything had been disturbed for months. Out on the screened-in front porch, there was a foosball table, a pinball machine, and then there was Star Wars memorabilia, which, again, was more indicative of a child being there. They just started going through a trailer. It was kind of odd because it looked like someone had just picked up and left. They began just going through their business. They photographed and started boxing things up. They saw all over the room those little cardboard air fresheners for cars. There were stand-up dial air fresheners all over the counters and closets and the dressers and stuff. As the cleaners made their way through the trailer, the smell intensified as they approached one of the bedrooms. They noticed the awful odor in one bedroom, so they decided to do that bedroom last. They started to clean out the entire residence, loading it onto a couple utility trailers out in the front yard. They did almost 3/4 of the house before they got to the last bedroom, which had the door shut. They went into the bedroom, and that is when they came across the mattress with several blankets on top of it. They started trying to gather up the sheets and the blankets, and the guy could not lift it. They realized that there was something in the blankets, something wrapped up in the blankets. So they picked it up, and it stuck to the mattress. He actually said that it felt like Velcro coming apart. And the whole time they were trying not to throw up because it smelled so horrible in there. What the men found next was unlike anything they had encountered before. They pulled the bag up and tossed it to the floor so that they could take all the mattresses out. And when the bag landed on the floor, it tore, revealing a human leg and foot. It was found inside a plastic bag. It had been wrapped in towels and sheets. 911. What is your emergency? I am working over here in St. Pete on a clean-out for foreclosure, and I have a dead body in the house. Does it look suspicious, sir? Or what is going on there? It is wrapped in sheets and plastic, and it has 5 toes. All righty, sir. What I want you to do is back out of residence right away. I do have units en route at this time. When St. Petersburg police arrived, they began by trying to identify the body. Our deputies observed the foot coming out of the bag, and they knew that the person was deceased. The body was so decomposed, we could not tell if it was male or female. You could not tell the race. Police pretty quickly knew it had been months. That it was so badly decomposed that it had not just been a few days or weeks. We were able to check the county records, the tax records for that residence, and that confirmed that Barbara Byrne and Deborah Byrne did own that residence. 2 people with the same last name. We suspected that those sisters lived at that residence. At this point in the investigation, all we had was a deceased body. The sisters were missing, and we had no idea their location or their status. Barbara Byrne was born on June 4th, 1951, in Maryland to a blue-collar family. While she was the third of 5 children, she was the first girl. She grew up outside of Washington, District of Columbia. Barbara's father worked nights. He was a printer. Mr. and Mrs. Byrne had 4 children within 5 years. She enjoyed her movies. She was very likable, very jolly, and had a wonderful personality. The Byrne family would spend every summer at Virginia Beach. These were the best times of Barbara's life, swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, running on the beach. In 1964, when Barbara was 13 years old, her youngest sister, Debbie, was born. And while the family welcomed the addition, Debbie had a rough start to life. When Debbie was 2 years of age, she contracted scarlet fever. She suffered a bunch of brain damage and neurological damage and became learning disabled to the point that she never really matured beyond a 6-year-old. Barbara's father died shortly after, and Mrs. Byrne then became the breadwinner for the family. It was at that time that Barbara was asked to leave high school, and help take care of Debbie. At the age of 15, Barbara's life stopped, and her sole focus was to care for Debbie. Little Barbara became her nursemaid, a babysitter person, as well as her sister. That is where everything changed. It is really hard to imagine what it must have been like to be a high school student one day, and then a mother the next. I cannot imagine that responsibility. By 1981, the older siblings left the nest, and Margaret Byrne and her 2 youngest daughters moved from Maryland to a small apartment near St. Petersburg, Florida. To make ends meet, Barbara found a minimum wage job at a local restaurant. Barbara was a hard worker. She was always on time, always did what you asked her to do. Anything extra. She was a very good employee. Soon after their move, Barbara was put under even more pressure. Barbara's mother had arthritis and was eventually unable to work. Barbara not only was a caretaker for her sister, she also became the breadwinner of the family. Over the next decade, Barbara continued to be the only source of income and care for the trio, and her personal life was non-existent. She kept to herself. She did not really talk about herself or home life. She worked from sunup until the dinner shift came in, and then she would go home and make dinner for her sister and her mom. She also worked at a Beal's outlet, which is kind of like a Florida discount, dress and department store. After 19 years of living with her mother and sister, 35-year-old Barbara had to make the difficult decision to put her mother in a nursing home due to advanced Alzheimer's. Sadly, she passed away in November of 2000. But the Byrne family would suffer another tragedy soon after. Not so long after the mother passed away, their brother John died. Though they had been apart, John never forgot his sisters and decided to help them with a large inheritance. Barbara could finally breathe a sigh of relief from the constant financial stress she endured. When John died, he left $350,000 to take care of Debbie, which sort of absolved Barbara from the financial burden, because she had been bearing that as well, working minimum wage jobs, trying to support both of them. At that point, the 2 sisters had more money than they had ever dreamed of. Barbara quit her job, and they began taking lavish trips. All of a sudden, they were traveling to California, and then they were traveling to Australia and taking a tour all around. The sisters' biggest purchase was a new mobile home. After spending their lives struggling to get by, Barbara and Debbie wanted a place to call their own. One of the things they did with that money was put a deposit down on an $80,000 mobile home, and we were paying a mortgage on it. But tragedy seemed to have followed the Burns sisters once again, as detectives were examining a badly decomposed body and were unsure if they were looking at one of the sisters. There was no way you would be able to identify the person if the decomposition was too far advanced. No one had reported anyone missing from this address inside the residence. The Pinellas County Medical Examiner started by cutting through the plastic encasing. It was wrapped in towels and sheets, which were removed layer by layer and piece by piece. The body was basically mummified. We could not observe any signs of a struggle or any defensive marks. Despite the extensive decomposition, authorities discovered a crucial piece of evidence. We learned at the crime scene with the medical examiner that there was a single gunshot wound to forehead. We knew that there was not an exit wound. Once it was a bullet hole in the forehead, they knew it was a homicide. They just did not know who or why, or how, or when. Coming up, as police dug deeper into the sisters' lives, they uncovered a troubled relationship. Debbie began hitting Barbara and actually picked up Barbara's beer and thumped it over. And once the victim was identified, a shocking suspect was revealed. She had some explaining to do as far as why she was cashing her sister's checks in Virginia Beach. In May of 2005, investigators in St. Petersburg, Florida, found human remains inside the foreclosed home of sisters Barbara and Debbie Byrne. At this time, we did not even know that it was one of the sisters. Could the sisters have left and someone else had lived at the residence like a renter that would not show up on records? We did not know. We had to get that body identified. That would give us a starting point. Police believed they were dealing with a homicide, but this clearly was not the result of a robbery. There were no items in the crime scene to suggest that this was a home invasion or a burglary, as items were left behind: a television, cameras. I looked at the crime scene with no forced entry and nothing really being disturbed. We assumed it was somebody that was let into the house or someone that was actually residing in the residence. Authorities reasoned that the assailant was trying to cover up what had happened in the home. There were all kinds of air fresheners, everything you could buy over the counter and plug in, and the dial pop-up things, and the car automotive ones that you hang like on cardboard. There were boxes of baking soda open throughout the house. There were bowls and potpourri. Just anything you could think of to try to mask the smell of a decomposing body. The evidence just said that this body had been in this house, and someone had been trying to cover it up for a long, long time. Detectives' first priority was to determine the identity of their victim while they waited for the autopsy results. They started by trying to locate Barbara and Debbie Byrne. There were no vehicles belonging to Barbara or Deborah at the scene. After doing a record check, we did find out that Barbara did have a van registered to her, and at this time, it was missing from the scene. We were able to track that car back to the dealership. We made contact with the owner of the dealership. We learned that Barbara and Deborah Byrne used to come into the dealership to pay weekly on that vehicle. The office manager remembered the sisters all too well. While they had been prompt with their payments for months, recently the payments had stopped altogether. They would come in and make their monthly payments. They even would bring cupcakes in to her. A few months later, they were no longer making payments on the van. They attempted to repo the vehicle at the residence. However, the vehicle was no longer there. Then in January, the vehicle was located at the Greyhound bus station down in St. Petersburg. The dealership went and repossessed the vehicle and since then had resold it, with the van apparently a dead end. Investigators hoped that the residents of the community might be able to generate a lead. But neighbors explained that the sisters kept to themselves. Most of the neighbors said they had seen them, coming and going. They were there, they were home a lot, but nobody really knew them. They would wave to them and maybe say hi to them and talk about the weather, but it was very limited on any type of conversation they had with the owners of the house. It had been numerous months since the last time they saw Debbie for Barbara Byrne, according to the neighbors. While neighbors did not know much about the Byrne sisters, they did offer some crucial information that could help identify the victim. The neighbor said that Debbie only had 3 teeth, and also had scoliosis and walked with a distinct limp. Investigators passed this information along to the Pinellas County Medical Examiner. In observation of the body, we learned that the subject only had 3 teeth and a twisted spine. After reviewing that autopsy, they were going to take bone tissue for mitochondrial DNA testing. After reviewing the DNA results, police were now able to ID the body as 40-year-old Debbie Byrne, the youngest Byrne sister. My. And what is more, they determined the bullet that struck her was a .38 caliber. Once we identified her as Deborah Byrne, now we wanted to know, where is Barbara Byrne? Is she alive? Where is she located at? And she would go to the top of the list as being a person that we need to speak to about this murder. In order to track down Barbara, detectives sought assistance from her former employer. During our investigation, we were able to identify co-workers at the various places of employment that Barbara Byrne had. One of those was Linda, where that worked with Barbara at a clothing department store. Linda called me and asked me if I knew a Barbara Byrne, and I proceeded to tell him she was an ex-employee. Linda, who was Barbara's boss at a retail store, called Beal's outlet several years earlier. He asked me if I knew Debbie, and I said, yes, I did. And he proceeded to tell me that they had found Debbie dead, and asked me to come in for questioning. Linda told us Barbara Byrne worked, and then she took care of her special needs sister. She basically did not have a life, a social life outside of the relationship she had with her sister. They were together 24/7, whenever she was not at work. My first impression of Barbara was that she was a hard worker. She was dependable. She had a very good personality, very likable, very energetic. I believe a very sincere person. Linda told investigators that when it came to Debbie's care, Barbara had made incredible sacrifices. Debbie needed to be constantly supervised and was not able to live independently. Linda explained to us that Deborah did not treat Barbara very well at all. Deborah was very demanding, very disrespectful, very rude to Barbara. She was bossy to Barbara and mean to Barbara. I saw the mean side when we all went out. I think it was our Christmas party. I tell you, and while we were out, Debbie wanted to go home. She did not want to stay any longer. And Barbara was having a good time and wanted to stay a little bit longer. And Debbie began hitting Barbara and actually picked up Barbara's beer and thumped it over. And so Barbara left before anybody else because Debbie wanted to go home. She was like a child. I do not think Debbie understood things in life. She could not understand that she could not have what she wanted. She could not understand that it was not all about Debbie. Coming up, tensions boiled over when the money ran out. Within 3 years, they blew through $300,000. And as one sister's first shot at love too good to be true, Debbie had a relationship with somebody that she thought was going to marry her. Barbara was concerned that she may have been being taken advantage of. 24 hours after the remains of Debbie Byrne were discovered in her home, Pinellas County investigators were learning about the relationship between Debbie and her sister, Barbara. Barbara's former boss explained that the trouble began in 2001 when Debbie and Barbara's brother died and left the sisters a large inheritance. That is when Barbara quit working for me. She came in and told me that her sister inherited quite a bit of money and that they were going to travel and that she would have to give me a 2-week notice. Linda explained that Barbara did not know how to say no to Debbie. And when Debbie wanted something, Barbara gave it to her to keep her pacified. This was exacerbated by the fact that now the sisters had a large amount of money. Debbie did not have the impulse control you expect from someone that age. Eventually, Debbie demanded her own credit card. And with the boom of online shopping, Debbie was like a kid in a candy store. I went to Barbara's trailer a few months after she had quit the store, and it was filled with toys. It was filled with Star Wars characters, Star Wars games, Star Wars pinball machines. I mean more than a collector. I believe that they spent whatever she insisted on having. They had never had money before. They bought that house on Yellow Pine Street, and Debbie was spending the money just daily, buying trinkets and stuff. I told her that she should put the money in a trust and have someone take care of it for them, and maybe give them a monthly sum, but she never did. Debbie would get online and meet men, and I guess she had a relationship with somebody that she thought was going to marry her. Deborah had met a man online. He was living in Miami. Deborah was mailing expensive gifts down to him in Miami. Barbara was concerned that she may have been being taken advantage of. Barbara had told me that Debbie had intended on this gentleman coming to their house and meeting her and them getting married. Linda said the internet romance was just a fantasy and that Debbie's Miami connections seemed to be going nowhere as the money continued to run out. They conversed back and forth. She said she had a lot of money and he saw the cash cow, and then when the money was gone, he never talked to her again. The stories Linda told police raised red flags. Digging into Barbara and Debbie's financial statements for clues, investigators made a startling discovery. Within 3 years, they blew through $350,000. By 2004, the inheritance was gone, while the bank records showed that Debbie received monthly Social Security checks. It was not enough to keep the sisters' bills paid, so their home went into foreclosure. Investigators discovered that even though Debbie was deceased, someone had been withdrawing cash from her account on a regular basis. During our investigation of her bank records, we learned that Deborah's Social Security disability checks were being sent to a bank in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I think it was $651 a month, once learning that the money was being taken out of an ATM surveillance video that was obtained, and detectives finally located their star suspect. The person cashing that check each month was identified as Barbara Byrne. So now we knew Barbara Byrne was alive and while living in another state, cashing her sister's checks. Bank records also showed that Barbara had been depositing checks into the same account from a 7-Eleven. We made contact with the 7-Eleven Corporation and found out that Barbara was indeed employed at the 7-Eleven in Virginia Beach and had recently given her 2-week notice. She had some explaining to do as far as why she was cashing her sister's checks in Virginia Beach. Why would her sister's corpse be left for so many months in a residence that she used to own? We decided that we wanted to speak to her. We wanted to interview her as soon as possible. My partner and I then flew up to Virginia Beach. We drove to the 7-Eleven and conducted a surveillance until we observed her behind the counter working. We knew that she got off at 7 in the morning, so we waited for her to make contact with her at the end of her shift. After finding such a violent scene at her home, detectives were not sure what to expect when they were finally face to face with Barbara Byrne. I was just about getting ready to go home, and these 2 officers were outside waiting for me, and they went, "Are you Barbara Byrne?" And I said, "Yes, I am." We introduced ourselves to her. We explained to her that if she was willing to, we would like to bring her back to the Virginia Beach Police Department so we can talk to her in a room. I went with them. No arguing or nothing like that. And I did exactly what they wanted. Barbara did not seem to be concerned by us approaching her. She did not appear to be worried. She voluntarily said yes. At which time we put her in our vehicle, and we drove back to the police department. Judy with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Present with me is Detective Misty Manning and Barbara Byrne. Miss Byrne, will you just say your name and your date of birth? It is Barbara A. Byrne, June 4th, 1951. Okay, and what state were you born in? Washington, District of Columbia. It was not long before investigators were met with deception. Do you have any relatives? No relatives at all? No. Okay. We asked her about the residence that she owned on Yellow Pine Street, and then she said, "I never owned a residence on Yellow Pine Street." We were shocked that she took us down a road and started to try to deceive us. We had to figure out how somebody would buy this house and have it in your name. Yeah, really? I do not know. I do not understand that. Do you know a Deborah Byrne? I do not know a Deborah Byrne. Coming up, police were met with a complicated web of lies. Do you have any siblings? No. But would the truth be too hard to handle? And then they said, "No, Deborah is dead." And they said, "You killed her." Detectives investigating the murder of 40-year-old Debbie Byrne had located her sister, Barbara, who bizarrely claimed that she had no siblings at all. I do not know a Deborah Byrne. How about I show you a picture? Debbie Byrne. Nice girl. But I do not remember her. Honestly, that is your sister. That is the person that you loved. Barbara, at this residence in Yellow Pine, you found a body. A body? Yes. As detectives continued to press Barbara about her murdered sister, she eventually broke down. Barbara was becoming emotional, and she began to tear up, at which time she finally told us that she did have a sister. I said, "Is Debbie okay?" And then they said, "No, Debbie is dead." And they said, "You killed her." And I said, "I killed her?" And I told them that is not a relationship. Barbara Byrne was saying, "Well, when I left the residence, I waved goodbye to my sister." And my partner was saying, "Well, you could not have waved goodbye to your sister because she was deceased." Then the interview started to change. This is when she started to show emotional response. That is when they got me on tape saying that I killed her. This is your chance to want to hear your side of the story. Okay, I just could not take it. Okay, so what happened? Honestly, I cannot. She just kept pushing me. That is all. I thought enough was enough. Barbara, you could not take it anymore. You are right, I could not. According to Barbara, after their brother left Debbie $350,000 in his will, their lives were supposed to get easier. But the good times did not last long. One day I woke up and the money was gone. And I asked Debbie what happened. And then Debbie said she bought a lot of things online. Debbie and I always argued about money. My brother, he left the money for Debbie. So that left Debbie to be the boss of the money. Debbie did not understand how the money could be gone because she thought, "Oh, we are rich. We have all the money in the world." They were not even able to make the payment on the double-wide trailer that they lived in. They had gone from basically having it all to having nothing. Barbara realized she had to go back to work, back to making minimum wage. The sisters' codependent relationship fell back into a familiar pattern. Debbie wanted more money. I told Debbie, "You get Social Security once a month." And Debbie said, "I want more money every time." It was very hard because Debbie was more controlling then. Debbie and I had never gotten a break, and I needed a break from Debbie. Barbara brought investigators back to August 14th, Debbie's 40th birthday. Barbara had taken her to a restaurant, and while at the restaurant, Deborah became upset because Barbara was talking about their financial problems once again, and she would yell at me upon returning home. Barbara said their argument went from bad to worse. So Debbie and I had a very, very bad fight, fist fighting. Yeah, I just could not take it anymore. Honestly. Okay, so you guys were fighting. She finally decided to go to bed, right? Did you go to bed? I was afraid she was going to wake up and start yelling again. So I decided to just go stay in the living room for a little bit. And then I decided to go to bed. You guys shared the same bedroom? Yeah. Okay, why did you share the bedroom with her? So you did not have any break from her then? No, their heads were almost touching when they slept at night, and they fell asleep listening to each other breathe. After she went to bed, what did you do? I just tried to calm down. Barbara explained to us that when she went to bed that night, laying in bed listening to her sister snore, she knew that once her sister woke up that morning, it was going to start all over again. And Barbara explained to us that she just was not ready to go through that again. She had had it. She went to the dresser where they had a gun that she had bought for protection of her and Debbie, and she went and placed the gun by Debbie's head. And that is when Barbara revealed to investigators the shocking truth. Where did you shoot her? In the head. How many times did you shoot her? Once. What do you remember by pulling the trigger? I just did it. What was going through your head that time? I do not know. I really do not know. But I did not mean to do it. And you are sorry? Oh, definitely. If I could do it all over, I would never have shot her. Never. Did you say anything before you shot her? I said I would, despite her recorded confession to police. Barbara Byrne now claims she could not explain what transpired that night. It hurts. It hurts really bad. Till I am still hurting. You know, I do not know what happened. I do not know. To this day, I still do not know. I still cannot remember. It appeared that Barbara had just been pushed one step too far. And she just could no longer handle being the sole caretaker for Deborah, and could not handle taking care of a person that was not respectful or thankful for everything that she was doing. And then I wrapped her up in plastic. Where's the gun now? In the dresser. I did not know what to do. Do you remember using air fresheners there? Barbara had taken her minivan to a Greyhound bus station and boarded a bus and gone to Virginia Beach, the last and only place that Barbara had fond memories of growing up. Coming up, Barbara Byrne's tragic confession continued. I have been a reporter for 20-something years. I have never heard of anybody living with a corpse for that long. But would a jury see her side of the story? He said, Barbara, you're looking at death row. On May 9, 2005, Barbara Byrne confessed on tape to killing her sister, Debbie, while clearly traumatized by her own actions. Detectives pressed Barbara to understand the length she went to cover up the crime. The air freshener spent weeks, if not months, of someone trying to mask a terrible smell. They were everywhere in the room where the body was found, and they were also in another bedroom and bathroom, where apparently someone else had been sleeping afterwards. Based on when Barbara began cashing Debbie's checks, investigators believe she left in the beginning of October. If Debbie died on August 14th, Barbara continued to live in the same house as her dead sister for 6 weeks. I have been a reporter for 20-something years. I have never heard of anybody living with a corpse for that long. I mean, was she in denial that Debbie was just in there asleep and everything was going to go on as normal? Was she trying to hide it or cover it up? On May 9, 2005, Barbara Byrne was charged with murder and extradited back to Florida. As she sat behind bars, detectives looked to corroborate her confession. She was very apologetic about the gun. She told us that she hid it. She unloaded all the bullets, and she hid the bullet that she used in the middle of the case of the 50 rounds, and she put that in one of the drawers, and she put the gun in another drawer in the dresser. A detective that was back at our evidence and property room looked in the dresser and found the gun exactly where she said it was at. My lawyer said, Barbara, you are looking at death row. He said, they are saying that you shot Debbie. And I told him, no, I did not. I know I did not, because I feel it down deep inside. And then he said, well, I'm going to talk to the judge and see if we cannot lower it. We approached the state attorney's office to see if we could reach a plea agreement. We were able to show that Barbara Byrne was not a risk to the public. We were able to show that Barbara Byrne, after 40 years of being the sole caretaker of her sister 24/7 for decades, had just snapped. The state offered Barbara a deal, a 15-year sentence, if she pleaded guilty to manslaughter. I said, yeah, I will take it. And we went right to court, right then and there. The newspaper people were all over the place, and they were taking pictures and all that. And then the judge said, well, this is your lucky day. I can understand that, you have to worry about the jury hearing all the facts and circumstances and coming to the conclusion that Barbara was a sweet lady who just snapped and deserves a second chance. So I see that side of it, but again, this is cold-blooded murder. After Barbara pleaded guilty, she was sent to prison. By all accounts, she managed well in prison. She did not get in trouble. For the first time in her life, someone else cooked for Barbara. She was free from the responsibilities that were hers, and hers alone for 40 years. I will remember this case forever as the epitome of a good person that did a very, very bad thing. Sometimes circumstances create a devil. They create a breaking point. I do not think Barbara did it because she wanted anything from Debbie. I think she did it because she was pushed to the limits. With time off for good behavior, Barbara was released after 12 years. And in 2018, she moved back to St. Petersburg. But her return was met with mixed reactions. It was hard at first because people started asking me questions, and I could not answer that because I did not know how to explain it. They told me that I killed my sister, and I did not want to get in an argument with them or anything like that, so I just left it alone. I miss Debbie a lot, and I wish she was still alive. I really do. I loved her, and I miss her, and I wish this never happened to her. Every day when I wake up, I just want to see her face. That is what I miss the most. The pursuit of the American dream is often a journey of quiet resilience, built upon the foundation of hard work, hope, and a cultural anchor of one's homeland. For Long Nguyen, a man of 70 years, and his wife, Hong Lee, that journey began in the year 2000 when they immigrated from Vietnam to the United States. They brought with them their children, their cherished traditions, and an unyielding determination to build a legacy, settling in Arlington, Texas, a vibrant city in Tarrant County known for its rich cultural mosaic and a large, established Vietnamese community that had flourished since the late 1970s. The couple established a commercial sewing business. For a long time, their efforts bore fruit, assisted by their son-in-law, Chow Tran, who spoke fluent English and managed public relations and contractor negotiations. The family secured lucrative contracts, even manufacturing garments for major entertainment giants. By the year 2011, however, the tides of fortune shifted. The loss of a major contract initiated a severe financial decline, plunging the family into deep distress. In times of profound crisis, when modern systems offer no solace, human nature often seeks refuge in ancient beliefs. Long and Hong, rooted in the spiritual mysticism of their heritage, believed that their string of misfortunes was the result of a spiritual curse. Desperate to protect their family from bankruptcy, Chow Tran and his mother-in-law discovered an advertisement in a local Vietnamese newspaper for a spiritual advisor operating 250 miles away in Houston. The advisor, a 44-year-old woman named Daphne Wright, presented herself as a powerful mystic capable of lifting devastating curses and restoring prosperity. To a family drowning in debt and paralyzed by the fear of failure, Daphne appeared as a beacon of hope. Yet, beneath the veneer of spiritual salvation lay a calculating mindset driven by absolute control and financial exploitation. What began as a desperate quest for healing quickly devolved into a psychological trap. Daphne began running her services on credit, and as the family's business failed to recover, their financial obligation to her ballooned to an astronomical sum between $250,000 and $280,000. In the quiet psychology of the victims, the burden of debt was compounded by a profound, terrifying fear of spiritual retaliation. Chow Tran would later describe a reality where Daphne exercised an absolute grip over their minds, instilling a belief that the same power used to lift a curse could be weaponized to destroy them. The internal torment of the family reached such an agonizing peak that, according to later testimonies, Hong Lee felt utterly trapped, internalizing the crisis to the point of considering extreme self-sacrifice just to free her children from the crushing weight of the debt. Daphne, viewing the situation through a lens of pure opportunism, recognized that the couple held substantial life insurance policies totaling approximately $1 million. Rather than offering a path to relief, she saw an opportunity to liquidate the debt to the ultimate elimination of her clients. To execute the plan, Daphne manipulated another individual caught in the clutches of financial desperation. Bobby Guillory, a 52-year-old man with no prior criminal history, had been laid off and was facing the terrifying prospect of homelessness. Sensing his vulnerability, Daphne offered him $10,000 to travel to Arlington and carry out the deed. Bobby, blinded by his own immediate survival instincts, agreed, bringing along his 16-year-old nephew, Willie Guillory, a youth whose difficult upbringing left him with little agency to resist his uncle's demands. On the morning of June 10th, year 2012, the tragic culmination of this manipulation was discovered. At 7:29 in the morning, Chow Tran called emergency dispatchers requesting a welfare check on his elderly in-laws, claiming the family had grown worried after noticing an open window and an unresponsive household following a birthday celebration the night before. Officer Weller of the Arlington Police Department arrived at the apartment, initially expecting a routine check. Upon entering, the officer observed signs of a staged burglary. Furniture overturned and items scattered, but the true horror was concealed inside a small bedroom closet. Bound tightly with extensive layers of duct tape around their limbs, heads, and mouths, the lifeless bodies of Long Nguyen and Hong Lee were discovered. The scene was exceptionally violent, leaving even seasoned homicide investigators of 21 years deeply shaken. Initially, investigators discovered items intended to mislead them: a light blue bandana wrapped around a beer bottle, crushed prescription pills, and a marijuana cigarette. Elements deliberately arranged to mimic the calling card of local active youth gangs known for extortion. For more than 2 years, the investigation stalled, turning completely cold as forensic databases yielded no matches for the DNA recovered from the marijuana cigarette. However, the mechanism of justice often moves through unexpected coincidences. In the year 2015, Willie Guillory, now an adult, was convicted of felony involving horse theft in Houston, requiring his profile to be entered into the National DNA Database. The system immediately flagged a match to the crime scene from year 2012. When confronted by detectives with the undeniable scientific evidence, the young man broke down in tears, confessing to his presence at the apartment and implicating his uncle, Bobby Guillory. The arrests of Willie and Bobby unraveled a complex web of betrayal. Bobby confessed to his role, detailing how Daphne Wright had orchestrated the entire plot to recoup her money. But he also dropped a bombshell that completely reoriented the narrative. The key used to enter the apartment had been provided by Chow Tran himself, who had left it under a doormat. This revelation exposed a fractured family dynamic, suggesting that Chow, driven either by absolute psychological subjugation to the spiritual advisor or by a desire to access the substantial insurance payout, had become complicit in the betrayal of his own family. Following the tragedy, the sewing business had folded, and financial records revealed that Chow had purchased a new home with the insurance proceeds. Seeking to ensure a conviction against the primary instigator, prosecutors made a controversial decision, offering Chow Tran immunity from prosecution in exchange for his full testimony against the others. During the trial in August of year 2019, the courtroom became a study in human frailty and manipulation. Chow portrayed Daphne as a ruthless, greedy extortionist who held total control over his mind and body. Conversely, the defense argued that Chow was a willing participant who used a narrative of mysticism to deflect from his own greed, noting a complete lack of documentation for the alleged $280,000 debt and emphasizing that the $850,000 insurance payout remained entirely in Chow's possession. In September of year 2019, the jury delivered its verdict, convicting Daphne Wright of capital murder. She received the ultimate penalty of life in prison, without the possibility of parole. Bobby and Willie Guillory likewise faced accountability for their actions. Yet, for the investigators who uncovered the truth, the conclusion remains bittersweet. While the immediate perpetrators and the coordinator rest behind bars, the immunity granted to Chow Tran leaves a lingering sense of incomplete justice within the community. This tragedy stands as a solemn reminder of the vulnerability inherent in the immigrant experience, where the deep-seated desire to preserve heritage and seek traditional guidance can sometimes be exploited by predatory forces. It underscores a profound necessity of community vigilance, mutual support, and the protection of the elderly, ensuring that the pursuit of a better life is guarded by safety, transparency, and true solidarity. Scattered between Atlanta and Alabama, scrambled for answers, they reached out to relatives and friends, including little Chris, who had recently come to town for a visit. Initial reports suggested that Keontae had experienced car trouble and that little Chris had gone to help her. According to his account, they had spent the evening at the home of Keontae's boyfriend, Trey, and he had dropped her off there later that night. The police were notified, but in those first 24 hours, they had little to go on. As the hours turned into days, the anxiety grew into despair. The family members began to search the area themselves, putting up flyers and asking neighbors for any sign of her. The tension reached its peak when the Russell County Sheriff's Office received a call about a body found on a remote dirt track in Seal, Alabama. The investigation that followed was a harrowing journey through layers of confusion and heartbreak. Investigators, led by Lieutenant Harold Smith, processed the scene with heavy hearts. The identification confirmed their worst fears. Keontae was gone. The news shattered the family, leaving them to grapple with a grief that felt impossible to process. The search for the truth became an all-consuming mission. Investigators interviewed everyone, examining the timeline of that last night. They scrutinized the stories of those who had been with her. They obtained security footage from a liquor store where Keontae and little Chris had stopped, which showed them interacting normally. They investigated the boyfriend, Trey, but found his alibi solid and his cooperation genuine. The breakthrough came from the digital footprint that modern life leaves behind. When the sheriff's office obtained the cell phone records for little Chris, the data pointed to a location that shattered his alibi. His phone had pinged off a tower less than 1 mile from the location where Keontae's body was found, at a time of night when he claimed he had long since gone home. It was a revelation that hit the family with the force of a tidal wave. The betrayal was not from a stranger, but from within the family circle itself. When authorities finally reached little Chris, who had traveled back to New York, the arrest followed quickly. The physical evidence, including biological markers found in his vehicle, corroborated the tragic reality of what occurred on that dark, lonely road. The trial that followed in August of 2017 was a painful necessity, a chance to seek justice for a life cut far too short. The jury returned a verdict of guilty, and Christian Grissom, Jr. was sentenced to life without parole. For the family of Keontae Chavez, the years since have been a journey of healing and remembrance. They have had to reconcile the memory of the girl who dreamed of being a veterinarian, a model, and a soldier with the horrific way her life was taken. They have leaned on each other, holding on to the faith that sustained them through the darkest days. Every year, they gather to release balloons in her memory. They remind people to remember Keontae, to remember her warm spirit, and to keep that in their hearts. They do not dwell on the malice of the perpetrator, but rather on the light that Keontae brought into the world. They have learned that life is fragile, and that the bonds of family are both the greatest source of comfort and the greatest responsibility. Keontae's story is a testament to the fact that while we cannot always prevent the tragedies that befall us, we can choose how we remember those we have lost. We can choose to honor their dreams, to celebrate their achievements, and to carry their love forward. As her family often says, heaven could not wait for her. In their hearts, they continue to move forward, living the best lives they can, holding on to the hope that when their own days come to an end, they will see her again. It is a story of a young girl with big dreams, a story that does not end with the tragedy of her passing, but continues in the enduring love of those who knew her, who continue to speak her name, and who keep her memory alive in every act of kindness and every moment of reflection. She remains, in the truest sense, a beautiful soul whose journey, though brief, left an indelible mark on the world. This is the story of a young girl with big dreams. I believe that Keontae could have done anything that she wanted to put her mind to. She was surrounded by a big family who loved her and raised her with care. But there comes a time when, even with the strongest foundation, the unexpected occurs. When the night falls and the backs of those who love you are turned, something goes wrong. When the emergency operator answers your call, you already know in your heart that something is terribly wrong. It is a story of a wolf in sheep clothing. For the predators are not always on the outside of your family. They are often closer than that, waiting to strike in the darkness. Did this really happen to us? To us, this family. Did this really happen? We must go back to the beginning to understand the life that was lost. It was November 4th, in the year 1995, in Newburgh, New York. Keontae had just turned 1 year old. Her first birthday party was held at the house of Grandma Mary in Newburgh. Keontae was a little camera shy, and she quickly looked for her adoring father, Tone. Her father found it difficult to record the moment with his glasses on, but he tried his best. His mother was there, and her habit in those days was to record everything on video so that she could have it as something to look back upon in the years to come. For Tone, every moment with his daughter was precious. The early days of Kiani being a baby were a marvel. It was as if every day brought something different. It was a joy to watch her grow, to watch her say things, and to watch her do things. She was exploring the world and already trying to understand things with speed and curiosity. Her father was very proud of her. As the family sang the birthday song, little Kiani began to warm up to the attention. Her mother, 17-year-old Nickwisha Grissom, held her close. In the 90s, Newburgh was a place somewhat caught up in the crack epidemic. It was a time that felt chaotic. A large number of people had lost their jobs, and there was high unemployment and a great deal of drug addiction. However, it was not a bad city. It was simply a city going through a crisis. When Nickwisha and Tone met back in the year 1993, their young love was enough to sustain them. Tone was attracted to her because she was beautiful, she had style, and she possessed an outgoing personality. He had seen her out in front of her house, and he thought that she was a nice person, so he introduced himself and began to get to know her. The young couple was soon surprised with a blessing. When Nickwisha found out she was pregnant, she was very nervous. She was scared because she did not know what her parents would think or what her grandmother, with whom she lived, would feel about the situation. Tone was also shocked because he did not know what to expect from the responsibility of fatherhood. He wondered if he would be a good father or a bad father. When Keontae was born, the feeling was overwhelming. Becoming a father changed Tone because it made him feel as though he finally had a purpose. Keontae was the name she was known by, the nickname her father used. The godmother of Keontae, Fika, cut the cake. The family joker, Uncle Darrell, did not think Keontae should wait to get a taste of the sweetness. After the cake and the candles, Tone made the most of his time playing the role of father and went to the familiar ritual of unboxing toys. In those days, manufacturers made it difficult to reach the batteries, and one had to unscrew many different components just to get the device working. It made Tone feel good as a father performed these small acts of love. The great-grandmother of Keontae, Mary, watched over her constantly. Back in the early 90s, she lived with her grandmother while growing up. Mary was a very passionate person, a very caring and kind person, and she loved to help people. She was the one to whom everyone went when they had problems or issues. She was simply that go-to person. Great-grandmother Mary and the mother of Nickwisha, Gail, often took care of Keontae while Tone worked and Nickwisha was at school. Grandma Mary was like the head of the family, the enforcer, the judge, and the person who called the shots. You did not question Grandma Mary. Whatever she said was a law. The family was all smiles for the camera. But a sad truth was about to bring a difficult decision to their doorstep. Nickwisha and Tone dated for a while, but eventually things went their own way. Tone was young and felt invincible, as if he could have the world. A few years after the video of the birthday party was taken, Tone and Nickwisha split in an amicable manner. They were no longer interested in each other, and they both went their separate ways. In the year 1999, Nickwisha started college in Atlanta. Consequently, great-grandmother Mary and grandmother Gail agreed to take care of Keontae on a full-time basis. It was not a difficult decision because she was so close to her grandmother. That bond was just like the bond Nickwisha had with her own grandmother, so it was acceptable to her. By the middle of the 2000s, Newburgh had one of the highest crime rates in the United States. Grandmother Mary made the difficult decision to move Keontae to the safety of her hometown, Phoenix City, Alabama. That was a hard pill to swallow. But a part of the family knew that perhaps it was the best thing to get her out of the city, so she could have a better chance at a better quality of life. Moving to Alabama felt like moving between night and day. There were forests and trees, and at one time, there were deer mating in the front yard. It was truly a different world. By Thanksgiving of the year 2006, 12-year-old Keontae Chavis and her family were reunited at the house of Grandma Mary. Grandma Mary was there with her glasses, along with her son, Darrell. Now, living in Phoenix City, Keontae was closer than ever to her second cousin, Courtney. Courtney was standing there in red with her daughter, Lexi. Although she was technically a cousin, the term did not seem good enough. She was closer than that. She was like an aunt to Keontae. Out in the yard, Keontae, who was growing taller by the day, braved the cold with her cousin Todd and his brother Tyson. Keontae loved basketball. The interest started from the movie Space Jam featuring Michael Jordan, and she used to watch that movie over and over and over again. She certainly could hold her own on the court. She really knew how to handle the ball. Keontae could be a shy child, but when surrounded by her family and on the basketball court, her personality shone through. She was quiet, but she had a huge presence. Keontae put her passion into practice and joined the team at high school. She had dreams of going to college to play basketball, but the end of the basketball season brought a devastating twist of fate. Keontae sustained an injury while playing. She fell on her leg and she damaged her knee. After that, she simply did not go back to playing. In a split second, the basketball dreams of Keontae were shattered. It was very tough seeing her lose something she was passionate about, something she could no longer do. She lost confidence after that incident. In the year 2007, in Atlanta, Georgia, the family attended the preschool graduation of the cousin of Keontae, Aya. Keontae was there, along with her mother, Courtney, who was ready to take a photograph of the big moment. Aya was graduating from pre-kindergarten. She was 6 years old. Keontae showed up for Aya, and she seemed to take an interest in helping Aya when she was sick. Keontae was a straight-A student and had been a big inspiration for Aya. She was a person who cared about getting good grades. She was very motivated and driven by the idea that she would get an education and achieve her goals. Since her knee injury, Keontae had put basketball behind her and started looking for other opportunities. She had a lot of aspirations. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She wanted to become a model. She wanted to become a rapper. She had many things that interested her. By the year 2010, 16-year-old Keontae was a freshman at Central High School. She had grown closer to her cousin, Christian Grissom Jr., known to the family as Little Chris, who had recently been spending more time in Alabama. They were close as children, and he and his sisters would stay at the house of Grandma Mary. They were cousins, but in that family, a cousin was almost like a brother or sister. Keontae and Christian had a good friendship. They got along well with each other, and they would joke around often. Christian had a partner and 3 children in Florida, but he wanted to split his time between them and his family in Alabama. After all, he was one of the favorite grandchildren of Grandma Mary. Just as Keontae had always struggled with shyness, Little Chris had faced his own self-esteem issues. He was always a chubby child. He used to cry a lot, but he was also really tough. Sometimes people cry because they have built up emotions that they do not know how to channel properly. But Keontae and Little Chris soon discovered a shared interest that brought them out of their shells. Chris was into hip-hop, and he would rhyme and write lyrics. Keontae was impressed by him. He even had a stage name, though nobody knew where he got it. His name was Thirst Mega. Encouraged by Little Chris, Keontae challenged her own shyness and developed her passion for rap. Her rap name was Wonderflow, a play on the word wonderful. She wrote her own music and recorded a copy for her uncle, Klika, who also used to rap. Keontae sent him an email and asked him to check it out. He was amazed, wondering where this talent had come from, because she had always been so quiet. Keontae had surprised all of them, but rap was just a hobby for Keontae. After graduating, she decided to follow in the footsteps of her Uncle Clee and join the Air Force. She always said that she was going to help take care of her family. That was one of the reasons she wanted to go into the military. In August of the year 2014, she passed the first Air Force written test with flying colors. She scored very high on the military test. At that point in time, her family believed that Keontae could have done anything she wanted to put her mind to. Things in her personal life were also going well. Keontae had a boyfriend named Trey. Her mother met him a couple times, and he seemed to be a kind person. Keontae told her mother that one day she would love to get married and have plenty of children. When her mother asked who would take care of all those children, Keontae replied that her mother and grandmother would help. On August 6th, at 6:30 in the evening, Nickwisha received a phone call from Keontae. She was excited because she had a job interview the next morning at a local Sam Club. She was very enthusiastic about it and was looking forward to the opportunity. It would provide enough income to support her until she joined the Air Force. Nickwisha ended the conversation by wishing her good luck and telling her that she would call her the next morning to help her prepare. The next morning, Nickwisha called the house of her mother, Gail, where Keontae had been staying. Keontae was not there. A lot of things raced through the mind of Nickwisha because she knew that Keontae was usually home at that time of the morning. She called several times, but her phone went straight to voicemail. She called the Sam Club and asked to speak with the manager. She asked if they had an interview scheduled for Keontae that morning. The manager said yes, but she had never shown up. That was not like Keontae. She would not have missed an interview she was looking forward to. After she heard that news, the mother became frightened because she knew something was wrong. At 12 in the afternoon on August 7th, the uncharacteristic silence of 19-year-old Keontae Chavez was worrying her family. Nickwisha was still in Atlanta, trying to figure out what was happening, calling her phone over and over. The last person to hear anything from Keontae was her grandmother, Gail. That night, when Keontae went missing, her car had broken down somewhere near Phoenix City. Keontae had called the house to let her grandmother know. That day, her cousin, little Chris, had just arrived from Florida for a family visit. Grandmother Gail had told him to go and pick Keontae up, but neither she nor little Chris had heard from Keontae since the early hours of the morning, after little Chris had dropped her off at the house of her boyfriend, Trey. The family of Keontae went to the local police station to report her missing, despite their pleas, because she had been missing for less than 24 hours. The Phoenix City police insisted there was little they could do. Typically, when someone is reported missing, police assume they have just gone off with friends or do not want to be found. They often state that 99% of missing persons are eventually found. The family was distraught, but with little choice, they returned home. Nickwisha called the father of Keontae, Tone. When Tone received the call, he was told that their daughter was not answering the phone and that something had happened to her. Tone immediately caught a plane to Atlanta. Once they arrived in Alabama, some of the family met them at the house of Mary Grissom, and they jumped into different cars. They circled the block, asked people if they had seen her, and put out missing person flyers. After 2 days without contact, Grandmother Gail returned to the police station. She recounted the timeline. Her car had broken down, and her cousin Christian had gone to help her. Little Chris had told Gail that they had both gone to a small gathering at the house of the boyfriend of Keontae, Trey. Later, they left together to get something to eat. Christian said he dropped Keontae back at the house of her boyfriend at 1:32 in the morning, and then he went home. Concerned for Keontae, Gail called Trey. She asked if Keontae was there. Trey said no. He stated that Keontae did not come back to his house after she left earlier that evening. He claimed the last time he saw her was around 8 or 9 at night. Only a few hours later, at 5:29 in the evening, the Russell County Sheriff's Office received a call from a family driving down a remote dirt track in Seal, Alabama. The passenger observed what she thought was a body lying on the side of the road and immediately called 911. Investigators from the Russell County Sheriff's Office rushed to the remote dirt track. Chief Investigator, Lieutenant Harold Smith, was dispatched to the scene. When he arrived at the scene on Ridge Road, the crime scene tape was up. He worked to document the scene and made his way to the body. He knew immediately when he looked at her that it was Keontae. She had been there for some time, and there were signs of decomposition. Forensic officers estimated that she died sometime between 3 and 4 in the morning on the morning of August 7th. She had blunt force trauma to her head, and it appeared that she had been strangled. Her clothing suggested the possibility of a sexual assault, but there was no forensic evidence to support that theory. There was no way of knowing for certain, and the investigators could not prove it. By 7 p.m, 2 hours after her body had been located, officers broke the devastating news to the family of Keontae. They were told to come down to the police station. When they arrived, the head sheriff announced that Keontae was not coming home. After the mother heard that news, she felt as though she wanted to break apart. It was like a physical blow, and she felt numb and angry. The family was asked to identify the body, but they were advised not to let her mother go out there to see her daughter in that condition. It would haunt her forever. So, Grandma Mary and Grandmother Gail went to view her. They confirmed the worst fears of the family. Keontae was dead. It was late at night on August 9th when investigators interviewed the family and friends of Keontae in what was now officially a homicide investigation. They spoke to everybody. Little Chris was already on his way back to his family in Florida. While detectives tried to reach him, they spoke to the great-uncle of Keontae, Daryl. He confirmed what Gail had told the police hours earlier. Investigators also spoke to the cousin of Keontae, Todd Tolliver, who had spoken with Christian on the telephone to get a specific timeline. Christian walked him through the night. He was at the house of Trey. They left around 9:30. He went to get food at Burger King, and then they went to the liquor store. Investigators requested the closed-circuit television footage from the liquor store to confirm the story of Chris. On the night of August 6th, just before 11 at night, they got a hit. They saw the vehicle of Christian pull up. Christian got out and went into the store. Little Chris appeared to be alone, but then Keontae followed him inside. Christian bought a couple of items. Everything appeared normal between Christian and Keontae. She did not appear to be stressed in any way. It seemed like they were having a normal night. Back in the interview rooms, another potential suspect was coming under the spotlight. The police thought that it might be a domestic violence scenario between a boyfriend and a girlfriend, so they focused on Trey. The grandmother of the boyfriend of Gail also highlighted her suspicions. On August 10th, police were dispatched to the house of Trey. They discovered that he lived with his cousin, Garrett, who was also at the house the night Keontae disappeared. Police brought them both in for questioning. Trey stated that he came home from work around 6:30 or 7 in the afternoon, saw Keontae and Christian there in the yard, spoke to them, and then had to go back to work. Officers spoke to Garrett, and he confirmed the story of Trey. He said that Trey went back to work, and Keontae and Christian were going to get food, go to the liquor store, and then come back to the house. They left around 9:30 at night. Throughout the night, Garrett claimed he was out on the porch waiting for Keontae, but neither she nor little Chris ever appeared. Because of previous run-ins with the police, Garrett was wearing an ankle monitor. The police checked the monitor, and the global positioning system data stated that he was at the house during the time of the death of Keontae. Despite their earlier suspicions of Trey, investigators found him cooperative, and his alibi was solid. They felt that he was not involved. All leads pointed back to the moment Chris said he dropped her off at the house of Trey. Either something happened to Keontae before she reached the house, or little Chris had been lying. When the Russell County Sheriff Office obtained the phone records of little Chris, they discovered something that blew the case wide open. His cell phone pinged off a cell tower that was 0.95 miles from the body. The ping was recorded at approximately 3 a.m. on the morning of August 7th. That many had to be extremely close to the body of Keontae on Ridge Road. Police drone footage of the area showed a remote, rural expanse. There was no place in the city that would have hit that tower. It told the investigators that he was purposefully on that road, putting a cell phone in the vicinity of the body. That was a huge step. They felt they had their man. Little Chris was nowhere to be found. On August 11, 2014, in Platteville, New York, the caller was outside the house of the mother of Christian Grissom. Little Chris was not back home in Florida. He was at his mother's house in Platteville. The relatives of Keontae from Newburgh were about to confront him. When the police arrived, They found little Chris and put him in handcuffs. They arrested him and impounded his vehicle. Lieutenant Harold Smith was dispatched to drive to New York with the arrest warrant. Detectives took little Chris to the station, but before they could get him into the interrogation room, he requested a lawyer. The police looked for signs of a struggle. They were able to see a bite mark on his chest, a plain and visible bite mark. Perhaps Keontae had bitten him in an effort to defend herself. While in custody, Christian made a prepaid collect call. He spoke to someone, saying that he was all right for now, but he was not saying anything without a lawyer. He mentioned that they had taken pictures of his hands and his chest because he had a little bruise and a little bite mark, but he claimed the bite mark was old. The police were able to get a recording of Christian admitting that they were bite marks. They were able to speak with his girlfriend in Florida. She was cooperative and responsive to police inquiries, and she emphatically said that when he left Florida, he did not have bite marks of any kind on his chest. Little Chris had said he just wanted this to be over with, and he just wanted to go home. That same afternoon, Lieutenant Harold Smith arrived at the Platte Hill Police Department to execute the search warrant on the vehicle. He saw that there was a blood smear on the headliner at the dome light. They cut that piece of material out and submitted it to the Alabama Department of Forensic Science. The results confirmed the suspicions of the investigators. It was the blood of Keontae. It was a final piece of evidence they needed, and little Chris was charged with the murder of his own cousin. It was hard for the family to live with the fact that the betrayal came from within the family circle. The motive of little Chris remained a mystery. Why did he do it? What could she have done that was so wrong to make him take her life? Some family members had a theory. They believed personally that he may have been attracted to her, tried something, and it did not work out the way he thought it would. Maybe Keontae threatened to call family members on him, and he just lost it. At his trial on August 28, 2017, little Chris maintained his innocence. He denied ever doing this to her. The prosecutors laid out their theory after leaving the house of Trey around 9:30 at night. He took her to the liquor store. They drove around the area. They ended up on that lonely, remote dirt road, and they got into a fight. The fight occurred right there where the body was left. It was likely that she fought back, but she was unable to overpower him. He strangled her, hit her in the face, and bludgeoned her to death. It was a horrible way to kill someone, especially someone related to him. He dumped her body on the side of the road and drove to the house of Gale. The jury was out for 30 or 40 minutes and came back with a guilty verdict. Christian Grissom Jr. was found guilty of murder and was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The actions of Christian showed that he was a sociopath. He cared nothing about anyone else, only about himself. For the family, it was a cruel pill to swallow. They asked themselves if this really happened to them. They realized that the predators who can harm your family are not always on the outside. Sometimes they are in your family core, lurking and waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. On the 6th anniversary of her death, the family of Keontae reunited to release balloons in her memory. They wanted people to remember Keontae, her warm spirit, and to keep that in their hearts. They remembered the saying they put on their shirts for her funeral: "Heaven could not wait for you." They stood together and counted to 3, releasing the balloons into the sky. They spoke to her, saying that they loved her. The mother knew she had to move forward because Keontae would not want to see her upset. She wanted her mother to go ahead and live the best life she could live. The family found solace and hope that when their own days came to descend into the afterlife, they would see each other again. The life of Keontae, though cut short, remained a testament to the love and the dreams of a young girl who could have done anything she put her mind to. Her memory continued to shine in the hearts of those who loved her, a light that would never be extinguished by the shadows of the past. This is a story of a young girl with big dreams, a life that unfolded like a tapestry woven with threads of laughter, youthful aspiration, and the enduring strength of a family bound by love. I believe that she could have done anything that she wanted to put her mind to, for she was a spirit full of potential, supported by a family that cherished every step of her journey. The tale begins on a crisp day November 4th, 1995, in Newburgh, New York. It was a time of change, a time when the world seemed vast as a child. The first birthday party was held at the home of Grandmother Mary. It was a day filled with the warmth of family, the sound of music, and the bright, hopeful eyes of the youngest member of the clan. She was a little camera-shy, quickly looking for her adoring father, Tone, who stood by, ready to offer comfort and capture the precious moments that define a life. For Tone, every moment with his daughter was a treasure. The early days of her life were a marvel, a constant cycle of discovery. It was as if every single day brought something different, a new expression, a new sound, or a new way of seeing the world. Watching her grow, hearing her first attempt at speech, and observing her as she began to explore her surroundings was a profound experience. She was already attempting to understand things with a quick and curious mind, and for that, he was immensely proud. When the family gathered to sing, the little girl eventually warmed up to the attention, her smile lighting up the room. Her mother, Nikwisha, was 17 years old when she embraced the joys and challenges of parenthood. In the 1990s, Newburgh was a city navigating complexities of a changing world, a place caught between the struggles of its time and the resilience of its people. It was a city undergoing a period of transformation, where families held tight to one another amidst the challenges of the economy and the shifting tides of society. When Nikwisha and Tone met in 1993, their connection was built on the simple foundation of young love, mutual admiration, and excitement of a shared future. Finding out they were expecting was a moment of profound change. There was a natural nervousness, the fear of the unknown, and the question of how to step into the mantle of responsibility. Yet, when she was born, the fear transformed into the greatest experience of their lives. For Tone, becoming a father was a defining moment. It gave him a sense of purpose and a clear direction. The household was anchored by great-grandmother Mary, a woman of deep passion, kindness, and unwavering commitment to her family. She was the matriarch, the one everyone turned to when problems arose or when guidance was needed. She was the judge, the enforcer, and the steady hand that kept the family unit functioning with love and law. With the help of Grandmother Gail, they created an environment where the child could thrive. As the years passed, the family structure shifted, as all families do. Life followed its own path, and eventually, the parents went their separate ways, yet the foundation remained strong. In 1999, Nikwisha began her studies in Atlanta, and a decision was made for the grandmother to take on the responsibility of raising the child. It was a choice born of love and closeness, a bond that mirrored the connection between generations. By the mid-2000s, the family made a significant transition, moving from the city of Newburgh to the quieter, more rhythmic life of Phoenix City, Alabama. The move was a stark change, trading urban life for the embrace of nature, with forests and trees, and the simple wonders of a different landscape. It was a decision made with the hope of providing a better quality of life and a safe haven for growth. Thanksgiving in 2006 found the family reunited at Grandmother Mary's house. By this time, the girl, who was now 12 years old, was blossoming. She had become incredibly close to her cousin, Courtney, who was more like a sister than a cousin, a bond defined by affection and constant companionship. Out in the yard, the young girl was growing taller, braver, and more confident, enjoying the camaraderie of her cousins, Todd and Tyson. Her passions were beginning to take shape. She developed a profound love for basketball, a fascination that began after watching a movie about the sport over and over again. She learned how to handle the ball with grace and skill, finding her own rhythm on the court. While she could be a quiet child, she possessed a massive presence, a quiet confidence that shone brightest when she was engaged in the things she loved. She joined the team at her high school with dreams of pursuing the sport in college, seeing it as a gateway to her future. However, life is a way of testing us. The end of the basketball season brought a difficult turn of events, an injury that forced her to step away from the game. It was a moment of transition, a quiet disappointment that could have dimmed her spirit. Yet, true to her nature, she began to look for other horizons. She had many aspirations. She wanted to become a veterinarian. She had an interest in modeling, and she even found a voice in music. By 2010, at 16 years old, she was a freshman at Central High School, growing closer to her cousin, Christian, known to the family as Little Chris. Their bond was one of friendship and shared laughter, a connection that felt like that of siblings. When Little Chris spent time in Alabama, they found a common ground in music. He was passionate about hip-hop, and she, encouraged by his influence, challenged her own shyness to develop her talent for rapping. She adopted the name Wonderflow, writing her own lyrics and sharing them with her family, surprising everyone with the depth of her creativity and the strength of her voice. Rap was a hobby, but her eyes were set on a broader path. After graduating, she planned to follow the footsteps of her family members and join the Air Force. She was driven by a desire to help, to contribute, and to take care of her family, a testament to her character. In August of 2014, she passed her initial test with flying colors, scoring very high and demonstrating that she was capable of achieving whatever she set her mind to. Her personal life also seemed to be finding its own harmony, with plans and dreams for a future that included marriage and a large, loving family. On the evening of August 6th at 6:30 in the evening, her mother received a phone call from her. They spoke with excitement about a job interview scheduled for the following morning at a local store. It was a moment of optimism, a stepping stone toward the future she was building. Her mother wished her well, with plans to speak again the next morning to help her prepare. The next morning, however, brought a silence that felt heavy and unusual. When her mother called the house to check on her, she was not there. The phone went to voicemail. Calls to the store confirmed that she had not arrived for the interview, a deviation from her character that sparked immediate concern. As the hours stretched into the afternoon, the family began to piece together the events of the previous night. She had been dealing with a car issue, and her cousin had offered to help. The subsequent days were a blur of worry and searching. The family reached out, searched the neighborhood, and sought answers from anyone who might have seen her. They faced a disbelief that something so wrong could happen to someone so full of light. When the news finally came, it was a moment that altered the landscape of their lives forever. In the aftermath, the family had to find a way to navigate a grief that was profound and complex. They gathered not to dwell on the darkness, but to honor the light that she had brought into their lives. They spoke of her warmth, her quiet strength, and her radiant spirit. They remembered her on the anniversary of her passing, releasing balloons into the sky as a symbol of her memory, a way of reaching out to the heavens. The lesson they carried forward, and the message they hoped to share, was one of love and remembrance. They wanted people to keep her spirit in their hearts, to remember the young girl who dreamed big and loved deeply. They found comfort in the idea that, in their own time, they would be reunited, and in the meantime, they would live their lives the fullest, honoring her by moving forward with grace and courage. The tragedy of her loss was a test of the family's resilience, but their bond proved to be their greatest strength. They leaned on one another, shared stories, and kept the memory of her potential and her joy alive. They understood that the greatest way to pay tribute to a life cut short is to live one's own life with the same passion and purpose that she displayed, to nurture the connections that bring us together, and to never forget the love that defines us. The story of this young girl serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the immense power of family. It is a story that emphasizes the importance of cherishing every day, of supporting the dreams of our loved ones, and of standing together through the trials that life presents. Her legacy is not defined by the circumstances of her end, but by the beauty of her beginning, the brilliance of her aspirations, and the enduring love of the family that will carry her in their hearts for all the years to come. They continue to live with the knowledge that while she is gone from their sight, she is never far from their thoughts, an eternal presence in the history of their family, a testament to a life that, while brief, was deeply and truly lived. And so, the family moves forward, step by step, finding moments of peace in the shared memories. They look to the future, holding on to the lessons learned, the laughter shared, and the love that remains unbroken. They are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, an example of how love can sustain us even in the face of the deepest challenges, and how the light of a life well loved can never be truly extinguished. This is the story of a young girl with big dreams. I truly believe that Kiani could have done anything that she wanted to put her mind to. She was raised by a large, loving family, a foundation that I thought would shield her from all the harshness of the world. But life, as it often does, can take a turn when one is least expecting it, and when the backs of those who love you are turned for only a moment. When an emergency operator asks to address your emergency, a parent knows in the deepest part of their soul that something is terribly wrong. It is a terrifying realization when the predators are not always on the outside of your family, but are instead wolves in sheep clothing, ready to strike from within. Did this really happen to us? To us, this family? Did this really happen? To understand this journey, we must go back to the 4th of November, 1995, in Newburgh, New York. Kiani Chavez had just turned 1 year old. Her first birthday party was held at the house of Grandma Mary in Newburgh, New York. Kiani was a little camera shy, as most toddlers are, and she quickly looked for her adoring father, Tone. I cannot do it with my glasses on, he thought as he watched the scene unfold. My mother was there, and her habit back then was that she would try to video record things, so that she could have them as something to look back on years later. For Tone, every single moment with his daughter was precious. The early days of Kiani being a baby were a marvel. It was as if every day brought something different. It was like watching her grow, watching her say things, and watching her do things. She was exploring the world and already trying to understand things quickly. So I was very proud of her. The family sang happy birthday to her, and as they sang, little Kiani began to warm up to the attention. Kiani's mother, 17-year-old Nickwisha Grissom, held her close. In the 90s, Newburgh was a place that was somewhat caught up in the crack epidemic. It was a chaotic time, and many people had lost their jobs, leading to high unemployment and drug addiction in the area, but it was not a bad city at its heart. It was simply a city going through a crisis. When Nickwisha and Tone met back in 1993, young love was enough to make them feel invincible. What I liked about Tone was that I thought he was cute, and I thought he had swag, and he had an outgoing personality. Nickwisha remembered. I saw her out in front of her house and such, and I just thought that she was a nice person. So I introduced myself and got to know her, Tone added. The young couple was surprised with a beautiful blessing. When I found out I was pregnant, I was very nervous. I was scared because I did not know what my parents were going to think about it, or my grandmother, if that was who I lived with. I did not know how she was going to feel about it. Nickwisha said, I was shocked because I did not know what to expect of that responsibility. Will I be a good father? Will I be a bad father? When Keontae was born, I was still kind of scared being the first mom and being so young, but I thought it was the greatest experience I ever had. Becoming a father changed me because it made me feel like now I have a purpose, Tone shared. Keontae's godmother, Fika, cut the cake that day, but the family joker, Uncle Daryl, did not think that Keontae should wait to get a taste of the sweetness. My girlfriend at that time had the nickname Keontae, so that is what we called her, he explained with a laugh. After the cake and the candles, Tone made the most of his time playing father and went through a fatherly ritual. Back then, they used to make these toys so hard to get into that you had to unscrew a whole bunch of different things just to get to the batteries and such. It just made me feel good as a father to do that for her, Tone said. Keontae's great-grandmother, Mary, watched over her with love. Back in the early 90s, I lived with my grandmother growing up. She was a very passionate person, a very caring and kind person, and she loved to help people. She was the one that everyone went to when they had problems or issues. She was just that go-to person. Everyone agreed. Great-grandmother Mary and Nickwisha's mother, Gail, often took care of Keontae while Tone worked and Nickwisha was at school. Grandma Mary was like the head of the family, the enforcer of the family, the judge of the family, the person that called the shots, and you did not question Grandma Mary. Whatever she said was the law. The family was all smiles to the camera, but a sad truth was about to bring a difficult decision. Nick Wisher and we dated, and things just kind of went their own way, I guess, because I was kind of young and felt invincible, like I could have the world. Tone reflected. A few years after this video was taken, Tone and Nick Wisher amicably split. We no longer were interested in each other, and we both went our separate ways. In 1999, Nick Wisher started college in Atlanta. So, great-grandmother Mary and grandmother Gail agreed to take care of Keontae full-time. It was not a difficult decision. She was so close to my grandmother. That bond, I guess, was just like the bond one had with my grandmother. So I was okay with it, Nick Wisher explained. But by the mid-2000s, Newburgh had one of the highest crime rates in America. Grandmother Mary made the difficult decision to move Keontae to the safety of her hometown, Phoenix City, Alabama. That was a hard one to swallow, but a part of me knew that maybe that was the best thing, to get her out of here so she could have a better chance at a better quality of life. Moving to Alabama was like night and day. There were forests and trees, and one time there were even deer mating in the front yard. It was truly night and day compared to the city. Thanksgiving 2006. 12-year-old Keontae Chavis and her family had reunited at her grandmother Mary's house. That was Grandma Mary there with the glasses, with her son Daryl. Now in Phoenix City, Keontae was closer than ever to her second cousin, Courtney. That was Courtney standing there in the red with her daughter, Lexi. She was my cousin technically, but it just did not seem like a good enough term. She was closer to me than that. I guess I was like her aunt. Courtney said, out in the yard, Keontae, growing taller by the day, braved the cold with her cousin Todd in the striped shirt and his brother, Tyson. She loved basketball. It started from Michael Jordan's Space Jam, and she used to watch that movie over and over and over again. Man, I am freaking shivered. I freaking got chills, one of them joked. Oh, yeah, she could hold her own. I am proud because she really knew how to handle the ball, Todd said. Keontae could be a shy kid, but surrounded by her family and on the basketball court, her personality shone through. She was quiet, but she had a huge presence. Keontae put passion into practice and joined the team at high school. She had dreams of going to college for basketball, but the end of the basketball season brought a devastating twist of fate. Keontae sustained an injury while playing basketball. She fell on her leg, and she messed her knee up, and after that, she just did not go back to playing. In a split second, Keontae's hoop dreams had been shattered. It was really tough seeing her lose something she was passionate about, and that she no longer could do. She did lose confidence after that. The family noted with sadness. 2007, in Atlanta, Georgia. It was Keontae's cousin Aya's preschool graduation. There was Keontae, and there was Mom Courtney, ready to take a photo of the big moment. Aya was graduating pre-kindergarten. She was 6. Keontae was there, she showed up for Aya. She seemed to take an interest in helping Aya when she was sick. A straight-A student, Keontae had been a big inspiration for Aya. Keontae was a person who cared about getting good grades. She was just very motivated and driven that she was going to get an education and achieve some of her goals. Since her knee injury, Keontae had put basketball behind her and started looking for other opportunities. Keontae had a lot of aspirations. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She wanted to become a model. She wanted to become a rapper. She had a lot of things she was interested in. 2010, 16-year-old Keontae was now a freshman at Central High School. She had grown closer to her cousin, Christian Grissom Jr., known to the family as Little Chris, who had recently been spending more time in Alabama. They were close as kids. Him and his sisters would stay at Grandma Mary's house. They were cousins, but in my family, your cousin is like your brother or your sister almost. Keontae and Christian had a good friendship. They got along well with each other. They would joke around with each other. He had a partner and 3 kids in Florida, but he wanted to split his time between them and his family in Alabama. After all, he was one of Grandma Mary's favorite grandchildren, and just as Keontae had always struggled with shyness, little Chris had faced his own self-esteem issues. He was always chubby. I did not want to say a little fat kid, but that is what he was. He used to cry a lot, but he was really tough, too. Sometimes people cry because they have built up emotions and things like that, too, that they do not know how to properly channel, the family remarked. But Keontae and little Chris soon discovered a shared interest that brought them out of their shells. Chris was into hip-hop, and he was rhyming and such. And I was like, wow, man. And he had a name. I do not know where he got the name from. His name was Thirst Mega, they recalled. Encouraged by little Chris, Keontae challenged her shyness and developed her passion for rap. Keontae's rap name was Wonderflow, like wonderful for Wonderflow. She wrote her own music and recorded a copy